Tonight, terrorist takedown. The leader of the Islamic State terror group killed during a U.S. Special Forces raid in Syria.
Thanks to the bravery of our troops, this horrible terrorist leader is no more.
This is tensions rise in Ukraine. The U.S. and Russia push for more dialogue, even as troops amass at the border, and the U.S. sends thousands of troops to Europe. And amid a deeply divided Washington, lawmakers put aside their differences for a time of prayer.
I pray that we follow what Jesus taught us, to serve rather than be served.
Tonight on Faith Nation. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation in Washington, D.C. I'm Jenna Browder. We begin tonight with the war on terror. The leader of ISIS is dead after an early morning attack in northwest Syria. Pentagon officials describing the raid as a successful counterterrorism mission. In total, 13 people were killed, including women and children. CBN's Brody Carter has tonight's top story. Brody?
Well, Jenna, U.S. commandos led the pre-dawn mission in Syria's rebel-held province of Idlib, the target of the leader of ISIS, and President Biden is calling his death a warning to terrorists worldwide.
We will come after you and find you.
U.S. Special Forces surrounded the home of Haji Abdallah, leader of the Islamic State, wanted for a brutal attack on a Syria prison holding ISIS fighters and other heinous crimes.
He was the driving force behind the genocide of the Yazidi people in northwestern Iraq in 2014. Mass slaughters that wiped out entire villages. Thousands of women and young girls sold into slavery. Rape used as a weapon of war.
Fighting broke out after a 2-hour standoff with rocket-propelled grenades and gunfire erupting from the house. Abdallah, who also goes by Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qureshi, was surrounded by family in his home when he detonated a suicide bomb, killing himself and those around him.
In a final act of desperate cowardness, he, with no regard to the lives of his own family or others in the building, he chose to blow himself up, not just to the vest, but to blow up that third floor, rather than face justice for the crimes he has committed.
In total, 13 people died, including women and children. There were no American casualties.
It's not the end. The threat from radical Islamic terrorism remains, but it's always good when you can, in a way that we did, reach out, take down leadership of these terror networks. You make more difficult for them to bring that terror to our homeland.
Former CIA Director Mike Pompeo calls the death a significant blow to ISIS. He's hopeful it will bring stability to the region. Mr. Biden announced a job well done in an early morning tweet, thanking those who risked their lives to remove Abdallah from the battlefield. The Pentagon says Abdallah's wife and 2 children were killed in the blast. Another child was killed on the second floor. Special forces were able to save 10 innocent lives, most of which were children. Now, this morning's attack paralleled a Trump-era raid in October of 2019 when Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the previous leader of ISIS, died when he detonated a suicide vest during a similar raid by U.S. forces. Jenna, back to you.
All right, Brody Carter, thank you. Well, tonight, U.S. troops are on their way to Europe, set to bolster NATO's eastern flank as fears over a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine intensify. Today, the brunt of the 2,000-strong force from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, left for Poland. The rest will head to Germany as part of the Pentagon's Joint Task Force Capable Headquarters. Another 1,000 soldiers are shifting from Germany to Romania as part of a U.S. and allied defensive posture. And with that, let's bring in Clifford May. He is the founder and president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Cliff, welcome. It's great to have you with us this evening. So you're an expert on Russia and foreign affairs. We should mention you were a reporter in the Soviet Union and you studied as an exchange student at Leningrad State University when Vladimir Putin was also there. What is Putin's game plan here?
I think it's very clear. When Putin and I were at university together, we didn't hang out together. I didn't know him, but I've been following him for a long time. So I may not be a Putinologist, but I have a good sense. Look, he thinks of himself as the modern-day emperor of Russia, the Tsar of Russia. And the real title, if you go back, was Tsar of all the Russias. What did all the Russias mean? Well, it meant Russia like the Federation, which spans 11 time zones from Europe all the way into Asia, of course. But it also means Belarus, White Russia, where Lukashenko is the dictator, and it's pretty much at this point Belarus is a vassal state to Putin and to the Kremlin, but it certainly very much means Ukraine, which is sometimes known as Lesser Russia. And back in July, there was a 5,000-word article written by Putin. Maybe somebody helped him, but it was very articulate, where he says, look, we're one people, the Ukrainians and the Russians, and basically said it's a fiction that they're a separate country. They should be part of Russia. They should be ruled from the Kremlin, and I'm going to do that. Now, Ukrainians would differ with him. For many reasons. They have a sense of peoplehood, of nationhood. Religiously, they're Orthodox, but they don't recognize, for the most part, the patriarch in Moscow. They have their own Orthodox patriarch. They remember the great famine of the 1930s, the Holodomor, which was a famine that was imposed on Ukraine by Stalin, by the Kremlin, because the peasants of Ukraine wouldn't accept collectivization under communism. Their language is significantly different. Anyway, they believe in self-determination and they want it, and Putin is saying, I'm not sure I'm going to let you have it.
How should the U.S. and NATO allies respond if, in fact, Russia does invade Ukraine?
There should be, look, first of all, right now, there should be an acceleration of lethal weapons to Ukraine so they can better defend themselves if they are invaded and attacked. Weapons have been going there from the U.S. They need more and more help. And there may be, if this happens, if there's an invasion, there may be an insurgency that follows. We want to make sure that those insurgents can do the best to defend themselves. Secondly, there should be massive sanctions, not symbolic sanctions. People often don't get the difference. Massive sanctions means, for example, the Russian banking sector is disconnected from international banking. Really, that would really hurt. Nord Stream 2 should not go forward. That delivers gas, natural gas from Russia to Germany. There should be real consequences. Putin should know that and have to take that into account as he is deciding right now whether or not he wants to win. One prediction that's not just mine, he won't do so until after February 20th. Why? Tomorrow, the Olympics start in China. Xi Jinping, the ruler of China, doesn't want any interference. Putin's not going to annoy him because he wants the support of Xi Jinping and pretty much has it. So it's after February 20th until the thaw, the spring thaw, that he could go in. Why the thaw? Because when the spring thaw comes, a lot of Ukraine turns to thick mud, and you don't want your vehicles from invading vehicles getting stuck in the mud.
Yeah. What are the other adversaries, U.S. adversaries around the world, like China, North Korea, Iran, looking for in the U.S. response here?
They're taking notes to see what can happen. I think there's a real sense that the U.S. is somewhat in retreat. There are plenty of voices in the U.S. saying, look, this is not our business. Let Putin do what he wants to do. We don't care. Certainly Xi Jinping is thinking about that as he decides when and whether to take over Taiwan, which he considers not to be an independent country, but a rogue province. I think certainly in Tehran, the Islamist leaders there are thinking, let's see, this will tell us how much we can take over the Middle East, which is, of course, what their declared objective, including genocide of the Israelis. So, yes, and our allies are thinking, how much can we protect it? Now, Ukraine is not a member of NATO. We're not going to send U.S. troops into NATO to fight. The Ukrainians are not asking us to do this fight for them. One reason to send our troops, and we are, into the NATO countries is to say, there are red lines and you better observe them, because if Putin gets away with this, then he'll think, how about Estonia, Lithuania, etc.
All right, Clifford May, we have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you. Clifford May with FDD. Appreciate your time. Well, back here in the nation's capital, a time to come together and seek the Lord's guidance. Today marked the 70th annual National Prayer Breakfast. CBN's Tara Merchner has the story, including what the president had to say.
While the breakfast is hosted by Congress, it's also a presidential platform. President Biden used his time to urge members to come together.
Unity doesn't mean we have to agree on everything, but unity is where enough of us believe in a core of basic things: the common good, the general welfare, a faith in the United States of America.
President Biden speaking in person after attending virtually last year.
As I stand in this citadel democracy that was attacked 1 year ago, the issue for us is unity. how do we unite us again?
Starting in 1953, the annual multi-faith prayer breakfast is designed to urge political and religious leaders to meet, pray, and build relationships. Every president since Dwight D. Eisenhower has headlined the event.
One of the things I pray for, and I mean it, is that we sort of get back to the place that's so busy. I think things have changed so much, but that we get to really know each other. It's hard to really dislike someone when you know what they're going through, the same thing you're going through.
Democrat Senator Chris Coons sees this year's breakfast as a reset, and that Biden's most powerful testimony is his faith through personal tragedy.
When he was a brand new, young, promising, newly elected senator, to lose his wife and daughter just before Christmas in a terrible car accident. And just a few years ago now, when he was vice president, he lost his beloved son, Bo, whose birthday will be this Thursday, the day of the prayer breakfast.
Recalling his own time in the Senate, Biden recognized a number of senators, including Republican Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Mitch, I don't want to hurt your reputation, but we really are friends. and that is not an epiphany we're having here at the moment. You've always done exactly what you've said. You're a man of your word, and you're a man of honor. Thank you for being my friend.
He also warned that while divisions are noticeable, the rest of the world is watching to see if the U.S. can overcome them. It appears the speech did little to convince Republicans, the Republican National Committee pointing to his agenda, citing his pro-abortion stance and accusing him of infringing on religious liberty. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Coming up, what accounts for some positive news on the jobless front, even with another roller coaster ride on Wall Street. Tonight, another roller coaster ride on Wall Street and some positive news on the jobs front. U.S. jobless claims falling for the second straight week, lower than expected, and a welcome decline after previously rising for several weeks. Unemployment filings in today's report from the Labor Department showing a decline last week to 238,000. That's down from the previous week's claim of 261,000. This, though, as the four-week average rose to 255,000. And joining us now, Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate.com. Mark, it's great to have you with us this evening. You know, we see a lot of ups and downs from week to week. What is the reality on the jobs front right now?
Well, first of all, you talked about the jobless claims. These are a proxy for layoffs or fresh job loss, and they're very close to the 52-year low that we saw in early December. We kind of sparked up a few weeks, and now we're back down for a couple of weeks, but we're still at a low level. And along with that, we just had some data from Challenger Gray and Christmas out of Chicago, which counts job cut announcements. Those were basically flat last month compared to the month before and remain quite low there as well. As we approach the monthly employment report, we believe that one way or the other, we're going to get a picture that will portray essentially the economy stalling here because of Omicron. But we believe that there's every reason to be optimistic that this stall will itself ease and that we'll transition to more of the economic recovery here as long as we get some relief from the Omicron wave.
There are a near record number of job openings right now, 10.9 million in December, according to the Labor Department. Mark, what does that tell you?
Tells us the biggest struggle right now is for employers who are looking to attract or retain workers. And the number of people quitting their jobs remains near a near record, or near a record. And so the dynamic really is little change from what we saw last year, where the job market is regarded to be tight. But make no mistake about it, growth in the current first quarter, obviously the first quarter of the year, and we're only about a month through that right now, will take a hit from Omicron. We know that millions of people have been sidelined by that. Hundreds of thousands of people who don't have sick pay basically had to be recorded as unemployed during that period. And we've seen all kinds of other real-time economic data indicate that things like dining out or travel really did sink to some of the lowest levels that we've seen in recent times. But if we believe what we're hearing and have reason to believe what we're hearing, that these case numbers are falling, perhaps we can get to a stage where economic activity could really resume in a big way, and that would be obviously welcome as we enter the springtime as well.
Yeah, welcome indeed. Tomorrow, so we'll get the monthly jobs report from the Labor Department. What are you expecting with that?
I expect it to be volatile, and I expect it to portray this period of uncertainty and weakness. The consensus among economists is that we see roughly 150,000 jobs added on the month or recovered, and that the unemployment rate should remain close or at 3.9%, which is pretty close to the pre-pandemic low of 3.5%. Earlier in the week, we had the word on private payrolls show a decline of 301,000, and that was a shocker, so that may have set us up here.
Mark, all of this comes with a high degree of uncertainty, of course, in the stock market. It seems like every day is kind of a new roller coaster ride. What accounts for all of this volatility we're seeing?
Well, one is the high degree of uncertainty that we're working through right now, and that's associated with an environment where you have a high rate of inflation, as well as the Federal Reserve putting us all on notice that it intends to raise interest rates. So people are no longer willing to pay for the growth stocks in the way that they were before, and the Fed is going to be removing some of this cash or liquidity from the system as it moves forward. So the economy doesn't have as much pushing it forward as it did before, but that's really getting to a more normal or nominal state, and many would say that it's appropriate for interest rates to get back to more normal levels because we've been at record low interest rates for quite some time, and that isn't normal either.
All right, Mark Hamrick with Bank Craig, thank you for your expertise.
Thank you.
Up next, a safety net for women in need, how the church is providing a haven for moms in crisis. Beth is a single mother of two who became pregnant during the pandemic. She had nowhere to turn for help until she found a haven for moms in crisis. Blue Haven Ranch is a prime example of how the church can be a safety net for women in need. Charlene Aaron has the story.
From housing and meals to financial assistance, Blue Haven Ranch hopes to help single pregnant mothers work through past trauma and emotions in an atmosphere that fosters healing and a fresh start. Aubrey Schlackman says God gave her the idea for Blue Haven Ranch 2 years ago, an answer to a desire she and her husband had been praying about for years.
We've been involved in different ministries, but then we've also had a big heart for single pregnant mothers for a long time.
The mission of the maternity ranch in Argyle, Texas, will be to provide a supportive community for these mothers, complete with counseling and gospel-centered discipleship.
That's what we're called to do as followers of Christ, is to love God and love others and make disciples.
Schlackman says that the ranch, intended to house moms in individual cottages, will take time to build. Still, the couple felt the needs of pregnant mothers and their children couldn't wait, so they made the decision to start the ministry out of their home.
We knew we could take moms that already had current housing and then they were in a safe situation, and then bring them into a Bible study and a support group structure in our home. We would all cook meals together, send them home with the meals.
Part of the plan includes teaching the mothers simple farming techniques as a form of therapy to work through emotional wounds.
We have a greenhouse in our backyard, and we started and learned how to grow produce organically, hydroponically, with water channels and stuff. We got chickens and we raise eggs.
The ministry is now expanding beyond the family's home.
We have 5 moms now. Basically, we house them in rent homes and apartment complexes, and we pay for their rent and the utilities associated with that rent.
Many see this work as a model for how the church can assist pregnant moms at a time when abortion could be outlawed in America. At this year's March for Life, conservatives voiced optimism that the landmark ruling of Roe v. Wade will be overturned.
Hopefully, next year, we'll be in a new era of building a culture of life, because Roe will be gone.
Schlackman believes with the current Texas heartbeat law, which bans abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected, that the need to serve these mothers is greater than ever.
Being able to offer them this safety net and that space to kind of come into a community that loves them, that supports them, and sees them for who they are, and then embraces them and empowers them to be better moms once they leave the program and better equipped.
Beth was a hardworking single mother of 2 when she became pregnant again at the height of the pandemic. Unsure of how she would provide for her growing family, she turned to Blue Haven.
And I was feeling damaged and punished, but I knew that I wanted this positive change for my life, for my family, for my 2 older children, for their sakes, if for anything. I felt comfortable right off the bat. I feel more powerful, especially when they pray over me. I really love that part.
Schlackman says it's rewarding to see the ministry's impact.
And just hearing back from some of our moms who came out of some pretty desperate circumstances and even abusive situations, that now they feel safe and their children are safe and they feel loved and welcomed. And even despite the fact that some of them are not believers, they feel welcomed and loved and cared for, and not oppressed.
A fundraising campaign for the actual Ranch for Women is currently underway. Until then, Schlackman says the ministry will continue making a difference, one mom at a time. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Still ahead, saying goodbye to an American hero. Former Senator Bob Dole laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. Finally tonight, former Senate Republican leader Bob Dole was laid to rest this week in a private ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery. The decorated World War II veteran was given military honors and a 3-volley salute with his family in attendance. Dole's wife, Elizabeth Dole, was among family sitting in the front row and received a folded U.S. flag during the burial service. Dole passed away of lung cancer on December 5th at the age of 98. The former GOP leader was given the rare honor to lie in state in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda late last year. His body was then taken to his home state of Kansas and returned to Washington, where he was officially laid to rest alongside other American war heroes. And that is going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.